Today, we bring you inspiring stories of abundance, how people, just like us, manifested incredible amounts of money by changing their mindset and embracing inner discipline. These stories are a testament to the power of shifting our thoughts and feelings to attract prosperity. Sit back, relax, and let these experiences ignite the spark of possibility in you as they motivate you to manifest your own abundance.
Story one, manifested being a millionaire in 2 days. I put off writing this article when it initially happened for a lot of reasons. One was that I wanted to see if it truly panned out, money in my account and all. Another was that I felt torn. Another was that I felt torn. On one hand, I believed it was important to share this story because I know there are many people manifesting incredible and consistent success who might assume their experiences are too wild to be believed. I understand that feeling because I've been there, thinking, I know this happened, but who's going to believe it? However, I realized that belief wasn't serving me, and it was time to share this. So, since it's New Year's, a time for reflection and intention setting, it felt like the perfect moment to put this out there. For those of you familiar with my previous posts, you know I've been practicing manifestation techniques for a long time, religiously. Through thick and thin, I've read all of Neville Goddard's works, listened to his teachings, and explored other sources as well. Over time, I've found that the process of physicalizing manifestations has become faster and more frequent for me. This is linked to refining how I apply Neville's techniques. When it comes to the techniques that work for me, I've learned a few important things. Doing SATs, state akin to sleep, is great, but it's not always necessary. Success doesn't always require emotion. SATs with emotion works. SATs without emotion works too. Positive emotional belief, that works as well. It's really about finding what resonates with you. One of the most important things I've learned is to allow myself to feel certain. Certainty doesn't involve forcing or constantly checking for results. It doesn't ask, where is it? Instead, it trusts and allows. Certainty lets you take the next crucial step, letting go. Letting go isn't about giving up. It's about releasing attachment to the outcome while maintaining faith in it. Certainty makes letting go effortless. You choose to release, and with that comes a sense of peace. On the flip side, I've also discovered what doesn't work. Prolonged desperation, for example, rarely leads to success. The only time it seems to work is in those rare, high-emotion moments where fear is so overwhelming that you hit an altered state of consciousness and manifest in spite of everything. Even then, I don't recommend it. It's not sustainable. Waiting for the manifestation to appear doesn't work either. Constantly checking or obsessing over when it will happen creates resistance. And relying on the manifestation to make you feel happy or fulfilled is another trap. You need to find joy and peace now, regardless of external circumstances. This takes self-awareness. You can't fool your imagination. It knows your true thoughts and beliefs. You are the conscious creator, and it's up to you to refocus. Let me give you some background on the desire I manifested. My wish was for wealth and financial stability, not tied to my career, but a windfall. Specifically, I wanted over $1 million. I had done SATs for this over the years, but infrequently and without much emotional intensity. For those unfamiliar, SATs stands for state akin to sleep. A deeply relaxed meditative state that lies between wakefulness and sleep. It's a powerful mental state where the mind is highly receptive, making it ideal for impressing your subconscious with your desires. To practice SATs, you find a quiet, comfortable place where you can relax without interruptions. Close your eyes, take deep breaths, and allow your body to let go of tension. As you drift into a calm, drowsy state, visualize a short, vivid scene that represents the fulfillment of your desire. Immersed yourself fully in the scene, engaging your five senses and experiencing the emotions you'd feel if it were true. For me, my SAT scene involved imagining receiving an email or a phone call informing me that I had inherited $1 million. Sometimes I visualized seeing the amount in my account. The specifics varied slightly, but I always experienced the scene in the first person, engaging my senses to make it feel real. Hearing the notification ping, feeling the words on the screen. Over the years, I practiced this sporadically, but without much emotional intensity or consistency. For years, there was no noticeable outcome. This was largely because I would finish my SAT session and go back to worrying about my finances. That worry created resistance. Over time, I learned to redirect my focus and affirm to myself, I am wealthy. I have no financial concerns. I have so much money that I don't know what to do with it, and it keeps coming. Then, one day, not long ago, something shifted. I woke up, lay in bed, and decided to revisit my SATs scene, the same one I had imagined for years. This time, however, when I finished the scene, I chose to feel certain. I stood in my bedroom, felt the certainty of my wealth, and let it go. The feeling wasn't joy or excitement. It was calm and blank, like a quiet exhale. There was no questioning, no second guessing. For the next 2 days, I didn't think about it at all. Not because I forced myself not to, but because I simply didn't care. It wasn't an apathetic, I don't care, born out of frustration. It was a peaceful, I already have it. 2 days later, I was contacted with news that I had come into a significant amount of money. At first, I didn't know the full details or even make the connection to my manifestation. The money and property totaled over $1 million. The circumstances didn't play out exactly as I had imagined, but the core elements of my SAT scene, me seeing the amount in my account, manifested. I had no prior knowledge of this relative's financial situation or their passing, which was sudden. I'm not sharing this to brag, but to inspire. You can do this too. The key is to be honest with yourself about how you think and feel and how you're applying Neville's techniques. It's about faith, certainty, and letting go. Neville teaches us to imagine, whether visually or not, and to have faith and certainty. He emphasizes avoiding force or obsessing over results and letting go of old stories and current circumstances. Above all, it's about choosing peace and joy now, regardless of your external reality. When my manifestation became reality, my feelings were a mix of calm gratitude and reverence for the relative who made it possible. It wasn't excitement, as their passing was bittersweet. As Neville said, if someone's passing coincides with your manifestation, it doesn't mean your desire caused it. It was their time, and you were blessed through it. This experience reaffirmed my trust in this practice. While I continue to nurture my financial success responsibly, I'm already setting my sights on manifesting new desires. I hope this story inspires you. May this year bring you joy, prosperity, and all that you desire. Dream well.
Story 2, how I went from broke to earning 7 figures a year. I first found Neville and Law of Assumption in 2018, so I thought I'd share my success and experiences. I often see people share tiny wins like manifesting a test result or a few $100s. I don't see many huge wins, except occasionally, or multi-year life-changing creations. Well, I'm not where I want to be because my goals have gotten a lot bigger, but I've come a long way, and finding this work in 2018 changed my life. So I want to share with you how. Not to discourage, but small wins are nothing compared to the deep life changes and incredible abundance you can create in knowing who you really are. Just think, there are people out there, several, who own $10 million plus houses, multimillionaires. Many came from nothing. I'm not saying that's the only thing worth striving for, or even the source of joy, of course. But my point is, anything you want, someone else out there has done it. They are just humans like myself and you. So here's how my life turned around since 2018 and what I created. Um, Neville has been my favorite teacher. I own all of his books and have read them several times. I regard his methods as most influential for me. This may come off as some motivational story, but the truth is, I use Neville's methods daily and always try to understand and control my beliefs to grow. Here is how my life changed completely after doing the work. Money and travel. I went from negative 50K in debt, running my own online fitness coaching business, at my lowest point, not knowing how I would pay rent. Long story, but I was young and not skilled enough in business at this time to really build a team and a seven-figure business like I wanted, to acquiring amazing skills, being an entrepreneur, working in a small startup online with a terrific mentor. I manifested this exact position with SATS, state of sleep, where you enter a state of deep relaxation just before sleep to visualize and feel as if your desires as already fulfilled. Traveled the world a crazy amount to the exact places I had wanted to, and met a ton of cool people exactly as I'd imagined, over 27 countries now, and grew my net worth to over 250K from 2018 to 2021 to my current goals. This is really nothing now. And I now surround myself with people doing a ton more than me. So I'm not preaching here. It's just levels to the game, right? I now work professionally in the crypto industry, but also have skills and knowledge of a few types of online businesses in the consulting and marketing space, as well as make money from markets and trading, which is a great vehicle because there are effectively no limits. I can live anywhere I want, have plenty of cushion and money to live mostly how I want, have larger goals now, have time freedom as well, and most of all, love growth and feel great striving for more. I did SATs to get my current gig. I've also been trading for the last 2 years. And no, it's not easy. In fact, you're competing against algorithms and the best minds in the world. So the learning curve is quite steep. And trading is not easy money, but the potential is there. Besides, trading is just one vehicle. It's not value additive to the market like businesses are. So I believe it's best used in conjunction with a business or job, and investing longer term is better. Anyway, I turned negative 40K into approximately 350K in crypto and a separate stock portfolio last year. And yes, a lot of that crypto growth was market timing and luck with everything going on, monetary policy and all. And I know people who turned less into several million, and also plenty who got liquidated and lost millions. I still spent a lot of time and skill to create that. The point is, I created all of it in various forms, fitness and health. I achieved a more fit and better body than 98% of men have. This was a result of hard work plus these methods. And it was in 2018 when I decided to undergo a bodybuilding prep for a photo shoot. Great size, leanness, abs. I had been lifting for years but never gotten this in shape. It was not easy, but I looked incredible, and the exact city and water background scene I had visualized for the photos happened. My health is impeccable, and I for sure made other physical changes, and I think I somehow changed my girlfriend's looks to become better over time too. She was always quite cute though. I'm still very much in shape, but now do yoga daily for the last few years, as well as lifting. Location/living. I manifested the exact view I used to visualize in the center of my major city, with a gorgeous view of the ocean and city both, for a great price. And I've lived here for the last 3 years now in a luxury high rise. I can see ships and yachts right outside my balcony every day. It's literally grander than I even knew to imagine just 5 years ago. More finance. Over the last 2 years, my investments in more were doing so well sometimes, not always, that I often was able to have some months making 20 to 40K. The point is, I was not worried about work. I also believe parallel realities are real, and I used to visualize Bitcoin going to 50K back in 2019 when it had stayed below 10 for 2 years. This was not all due to Bitcoin, but rather all sorts of investments. But yes, crypto as well. Some was luck, some was skill and work. All was my creation. I also got quite decent at trading and managing a portfolio that I not only managed to publicly call the exact day of the market top in November 2021, but also sniped the bottom in July. Intuition plus knowledge. So I kept this money. It is not bleeding out in my portfolio with the market. I've devoted a lot into mastering this craft, but again, self-concept and Neville helped. I got hacked for around 60K a few months back and chose to give it new meaning and manifested a career change to the crypto industry, landing a position making over 10K per month. I'm not happy with this at my current standards of income, but I'm grateful that I am growing to 20K per month of active income now with other streams. What's interesting in my recent career manifestation is I decided I wanted a position that basically pays me to do what I already do. I was independently researching and managing a multi-six-figure crypto portfolio, over $250,000 combined money that I was managing. I now get paid a full-time six-figure salary to do nothing extra from what I was already doing and barely work on the actual job with plenty of time for other stuff. With every job I've ever had, I've never worked in an office. I've only ever been remote or online because this is the only thing I was willing to accept. Being a digital nomad has been my norm since I graduated college. Be specific in what you want and do not settle. I went to a top 5 US public university and even manifested myself to lead a large pre-med club on campus. I was a pre-med student before I knew Neville. I'm now very glad I chose to go my own route instead of medicine for several reasons beyond the scope of this post. But anyway, I manifested my SP manifested back in 2018, and we have a great relationship going on 6 years now, together since 2016. I focus more on self-love and feeling I am God rather than seeking it externally. My consciousness and inner connection is my source of sustenance. Honestly, there are so many other crazy little things I can't possibly keep track of. Every day I have synchronicities like crazy still. I don't give them much meaning, but just take it to mean that I am aligned. Now, coming to the topic of how I did it and my methodology, here are my best mental model and tips to help you all out. My mental models. So that being said, delude yourself into knowing that imagination is more real than the 3D. The 3D is old news, meaning it's a shadow world. The real creation is happening in your imagination, and there is a time lag in this physical world. Live in your imagination and tune out anything that does not serve keeping you in an optimal state where you feel in control. The more you focus on things that are meant to distract you or displease you, which state do you create from? I do sats during the day. It works fine for me. I don't think it matters much if day or night, but you need to do it. Follow a guided hypnosis session to get deeper into a trance first if it helps. Act and trust deeply that life is leading you to what you want, and the meaning you give to events is literally what molds your future. Choose empowering meanings. Stop being a victim. Make a resolve to never think of yourself as a victim of forces out there, the economy, evil people, whatever it is. You want to control your reality, then act like it internally. Make a daily routine checklist and stick to it so you internally feel in control of your reality. Mine is sat or revision, meditate or breathwork, EFT or writing, cold shower, no phone in the morning, wake at 6 a.m., and of course, I exercise daily in some form. I use a spreadsheet to make sure I hit my routines for the day so I don't become a victim but rather stay in control. this is critical for me. As long as you occupy the realms of consciousness that you want, the result will come via downloads and hunches and thoughts, and insane physical things will happen that will seem like they would have happened anyway. So don't worry about the how. The thing with manifesting is we sometimes take a passive route and wait for things to happen to us. And sure, this is fine and still works, but think if you don't grow your mental, emotional, and skills container to deal with large amounts of money or a team or skills to sell and market and manage money, if you suddenly get 500K or million, how are you going to hold on to it? If you lack personal power and execution skills, say you suddenly win 5 million from the lottery, do you have the skills to keep it and make decisions at a level that can fluctuate several millions? It's stressful and requires thinking completely differently. You have to stress test your consciousness and expand your container. I know that because I got hacked in around 70K, it means nothing because the version of me who makes multi-seven figures a year deals with fluctuations of multi-six figures in his portfolio all the time. It's part of the game. And I have dealt with six-figure fluctuations in my portfolio before this hack, so it wasn't super new in that sense. You know, time is not real. It's all happening now. Creation is already finished, so you should also know that the way to hack time is making decisions from a place of the future version of yourself you already are. Make a commitment to stop playing small and settling for crumbs. Why would you get hung up on the one limited way your ego thinks that abundance has to manifest in your life or love, instead of just feeling the emotions themselves, knowing it's done, and letting your life color it in grander ways than you could have imagined? Funny little manifestations and things happen literally every day that I just take as reflections of me being in my creative power. Something crazy and funny that happened was on our last trip. I told my girlfriend, hey, how funny and weird would it be to see a parrot meowing? Then the next day we sit at a cafe and there is a parrot in a cage outside meowing loudly. The most bizarre manifestation. I didn't even intend for it. I just asked, hey, wouldn't it be funny? Things like this happen so often I can't keep track. There is nothing new to learn. Just do the techniques and do self-care rituals and get lost in your work. Feel the feeling of utter abundance and freedom now, and it will happen. We live in an advanced economy with the internet. It has never been easier to start or fund a business compared to even 50 years ago. See interest rates. Distribution has never been easier. So if you know these tools, why would you not create the biggest dream you can imagine? Why settle for a free $200? I realize there are levels people go through, however, so I don't mean to belittle. But now that I have been through so much and grown, I know there is nothing separating myself from multi-millions and VCs and creators of large companies except belief, work, and time in this reality. I have the knowledge, belief, and skills to not need a job if I don't want one. I can instead offer something to the market and be independent. I'm telling you, this stuff works and is sustainable. You can be as specific as you want and get whatever you want. And trust that with the turns life takes you through, it is a bridge meant to turn you into the person to get and sustain what you say you want. Decide it, and it is so. I am someone who is a first-generation American immigrant. My parents moved to the US when I was 5. And we had very little here. I grew up lower middle class and didn't have the best money programming I had parents. But I always did well in school. I know I'm going to be the first multimillionaire in my family. It's all in how you think about yourself / self-concept and the work you do from that mindset. Do actions and shift your environment in accordance with who you want to be. I always splurge on self-care now and do things like fly business class or pay more for a better room because that's who I internally am. Just find a way to produce more and let it flow instead of shrinking yourself to be someone you're not in your 4D. I don't try to scrimp and penny pinch. I let money flow. Even though getting stolen 70K was traumatic, oh well, I chose to give it a better, empowering meaning and my reality shifted. That's all I have to say. Do the work. Stop procrastinating with learning. All the teachers, scripture, it's all the same truth at the core. Learning is fine because you learn different mental models at different points of your life, but you need to do the work. I've been fortunate to not only have explored tons of teachers and books in this realm, you name it, I've probably read it or have a copy. I've also had mentors and worked directly under multimillionaires, older and more experienced than me, who know this work very well and knew Neville specifically, and it's the real deal. I did sales for someone in the online coaching space who was very well off and had decades of success and spoke of Neville very often. It was really cool. I don't know what more proof you need that the law is real. All religions throughout eternity have known this. Neville just distilled the same truth through his own methods, which work really well in my opinion, and I personally love his interpretation of scripture. The most successful people in the world are usually consciously and some unconsciously doing these same actions. Just do the work and focus on it coming from a good place of knowing that it's done. You don't need to know how, you just need to know the plane is going to somehow land one day. I always come back to Neville because his methods are simple and his philosophies work well for how I think. I've done tons of psychedelic mushrooms over the years, which luckily made me very open to this kind of thinking. Before that, I was very rigid and too 3D scientific in my thinking. Keep in mind, there is actually nothing unscientific about the law. Modern science has its own limitations in that we cannot measure many things. What used to be called magic in years past is now under the realm of science, right? I'm not saying I don't value logic and science. I have a science degree from a top 5 university. I'm just saying that your ego mind, which wants to keep you stuck in surviving, uses the excuse of logic and science when that's actually not the full scope of how reality works. We are incredibly limited in our conscious understanding of reality. We don't even know what we're doing here on a floating rock in infinite space, and we can hardly see much of the light spectrum as it is. So remember that when your ego tries to make you believe in your limitations and the 3D reality only, you being here is magic that even the most advanced science doesn't have an answer to. Do scientists know fundamentally why there is something at all instead of nothing? Anyway, one more thing. I've never been shy about making relatively bold and fast decisions, investing in a mentor for business, and just generally betting on myself. Getting around people who think bigger than you and don't settle is a hack, and it's worth every penny. There's a reason millionaires hang with other millionaires. I'm not saying to cut people out of your life unless toxic, but rather to seek proximity and get around winners, or pay to join a mastermind in business, or whatever you need to do to network in your realm. This last week, I invested $7.5K to get into a network of high-performing young male entrepreneurs, just because I want a better network in real life and to work on business tactics and execution. When I was 23, I invested $25K that I didn't have at the time. I made it happen and earned it back to get a business mentor. So I use all of this in combination with, Neville's methods primarily. I really like the revision method as well. The active decision literally creates a parallel reality and becomes the new bridge to your manifestation. Hope you all take inspiration from my story and manifest your dream lives.
Story 3. Manifested yearly income of $540K and much more. I am incredibly grateful to this community and cannot express my gratitude enough. I first learned about the law of attraction in 2015, and it completely transformed my life. However, my journey truly deepened when I discovered this subreddit in 2019. That same year, I ordered all of Neville Goddard's books, devoured them one by one, and immersed myself in his teachings. Slowly but surely, my life began to change for the better. One of my burning desires was to generate a family income exceeding $547,000 annually, $1,500 per day. It felt like a distant dream at the time, and I had absolutely no idea how to make it happen. Yet, as I persisted in applying Neville's principles, opportunities began to reveal themselves. I started seeing pathways like games in the stock market that could potentially lead to achieving this goal. However, my journey was far from smooth. Many of my ideas didn't go as planned, and I faced significant financial losses. On top of that, my personal relationships began to suffer. This was especially devastating for me because I derive immense joy from the love and support of my family and friends. I've always been surrounded by well-wishers and have cherished my relationships, so hitting rock bottom in this aspect of my life was incredibly painful and unfamiliar territory. Despite feeling shaken, I held on to my beliefs and continued to persevere. I focused on doing my work to the best of my ability and took the time to learn new skills. Staying busy helped me cope with the emotional pain. Over time, I accepted my situation and made peace with it. I consciously chose to allow myself to feel happiness again, even amidst the challenges. That's when things began to change, then they changed fast. Incredible people started entering my life and new opportunities began to surface. In November 2021, I started a business, and to my amazement, it took off. Today, our family income has surpassed $570,000 annually, and there are even more exciting opportunities on the horizon. I can already see them clearly in my imagination. At this pace, we are on track to exceed our goals for this year. The funny part is, I feel remarkably normal about it all. In fact, I sometimes forget that this success was something I once longed for so intensely. I'd have to consciously remind myself to enjoy the fruits of my labor and take pride in what I've achieved. Another amusing aspect is how other people now react to me. When I walk through public spaces, people either step aside or stare at me, as if they sense something different. I feel a profound sense of confidence, and it seems to radiate outward. Recently, I've had the privilege of meeting many successful individuals, and I often hear comments like, "You've got what it takes," or "You're not like everybody else." My mentor even told me that when I first shared my business idea before I had even started, he knew I was destined to succeed. Here are my tips. Meditate daily. I've been meditating every day for the past 7 years. It has helped me immensely in managing my reactions to the 3D world and staying grounded. Limit social media usage. Staying away from social media has worked wonders for my manifestations and overall happiness. Read Neville Goddard's books. His teachings are transformative and provide the clarity needed to manifest your desires. Practice SATs. This technique might be challenging at first because it requires focus, but once you get the hang of it, it becomes addictive and incredibly rewarding. Wish you all a happy journey of manifesting your desires.
Story 4. Manifested my dream job earning $200K. For a few years, I had been dreaming of becoming a director of engineering. At the time, however, I was starting off at a new company as a junior engineer. It seemed like a distant goal, almost unattainable. But earlier this year, I discovered the law of attraction, which changed everything. By this point, I had already been promoted to senior engineer, though I had held this position for less than a year. And the truth, even in that role, I felt underpaid and far from reaching my financial goals. Specifically, I wanted to earn $200,000 annually, a salary that before reading Neville Goddard and Joseph Murphy's teachings seemed impossible to me. At my company, there was already an engineering director in place, someone who loved their job. They spoke about it constantly, expressing how much they valued the role and how they would never leave it. But after diving into Neville and Joseph Murphy's teachings, I knew that no matter what the 3D world was showing me, I had to persist in the state of already being a director. I knew my desire would come true, no matter the circumstances. A few months into my studies, the unthinkable happened. The director of engineering quit their position. It was a huge shock to everyone in the company. This person had been in the role for less than a year, having fought for years to secure the position, yet they left to pursue a completely different career as a freelance writer. A far cry from engineering. To this day, no one knows the exact reason they left, but I knew in my heart that this position was meant for me. It was already mine, and nothing in the 3D world could stand in the way of that. 2 weeks later, a job posting went up for the director role. Everyone applying had years more experience than I did, with many of them having led teams thousands of times as an underwriter than the other directors were hiring for. A lot. Something I had not yet done. In fact, I had even struggled to get HR to assign me an intern to manage. Despite this fierce competition, I knew, without a shadow of a doubt, that the role was mine. It was done. With unwavering certainty, I applied for the role. For the next month, every night, I visualized myself as the director. I imagined my email signature with the title Director next to my name. I saw colleagues congratulating me on the promotion. I embraced Neville's and Joseph Murphy's teachings. I came to realize that the real power lay within me and in the teachings themselves. I also began to embody the persona of the director. In my mind, I had already stepped into the role. I carried myself as if I were already in charge, even though the position had not yet manifested in my physical reality. I walked with the confidence of someone who was already living that dream. The day of the interview arrived, and I felt calm and certain. I wasn't nervous at all. I knew in my heart that I had already secured the position. This confidence allowed me to focus entirely on the questions they asked and to answer them with clarity and poise. I had also spent time preparing extensively for the interviews, living in the state of already being the director. I practiced what a director would do, how they would act, and how they would handle leadership responsibilities. The next day, I received a video call with the news. The interview panel said that while there had been a talented pool of candidates, I had stood out as the best fit for the role. They offered me the director position, along with a $70,000 pay increase and a yearly bonus boost. The total salary came out to $199,950, a figure that was just shy of my original goal. However, I had forgotten to factor in the bonus multiplier, which ultimately pushed my income well above the $200,000 mark. This experience solidified my belief in the law of attraction and the power of Neville's teachings. The key takeaway here is this: follow the law, read the material, and step away from external distractions. Just as everyone with a success story here has done, you must test the teachings out for yourself. There are free Neville PDFs available online, as well as Joseph Murphy's The Power of Your Subconscious Mind. All you truly need is to dive in and practice. Start wherever you want to start. Click on the website, build your faith, live as though you already have what you desire, and it will inevitably come to you. The 3D world may show you temporary obstacles, but remember, it only serves as a reflection of where you are in your state of mind. It is a tool to help you identify what you need to focus on. Don't let it deter you. Stay true to your vision, walk as if you already have what you want, and it will not fail you. Keep your mind focused, trust the process, and let go of any doubts. As Neville says, the world must reflect your inner belief. Keep going and trust that everything will unfold as it should.
Story 5, How I Manifested My Dream Job and Lifestyle. Everyone who's listening to this, please know that you do not need to perform copious amounts of law of attraction techniques to acquire the life that is your literal birthright. There is one simple way to manifest, and it's something I finally implemented after years of chaotic manifesting. I follow New Age influencers and YouTubers who were making money off people's vulnerabilities, promising shortcuts to a better life. They sold courses, products, and strategies, all claiming to have the key to unlocking your dream reality. But none of it worked for me. None of it brought me lasting peace or success. It was exhausting, and it often left me feeling more lost than before. So what changed for me? What did I do that made all the difference? I decided. Yes, you read that right. I decided what my life would look like, and I made the conscious choice to see my life as that right now. I decided who I was going to be, and I decided to take full control over the direction and feel of my life. I chose the kind of people I wanted to be surrounded by, the places I wanted to visit, the experiences I wanted to have, and the emotions I wanted to feel. I made a firm, unwavering decision. I committed to a reality that I had chosen for myself, and I took full responsibility for it. No more waiting for external factors to change. No more hoping that someone else would give me the secret or the roadmap to my desired life. And so, this isn't some gimmick or trick. It isn't about following the latest trends, signing up for expensive courses, or paying for a subscription to manifest your dreams. You don't need to consult a psychic, isolate yourself from the world, or engage in ritualistic practices with amethyst stones and candles. All you need to do is decide and then commit to that decision, day in and day out. It's that simple. You don't have to follow a specific script or perform complex rituals to manifest your dreams. If it feels good to you, visualize it. I did this often leading up to my desires unfolding in my physical reality. I found it enjoyable, and it brought me a sense of excitement and anticipation. Remember this, all of your desires, everything you imagine is already real. It's simply up to you to decide that this is what it will be, this is what it is now, full stop. I want to emphasize this point. I hope that whoever is reading this feels like this is enough encouragement to stop the frantic searching, the constant doing, and the endless pursuit of the next best thing. Just be. You are more than enough as you are right now. You are already living in the desired reality that you see in your imagination now, as long as you decide and persist in that decision. Let me share something important with you. During my journey, there came a point when everything felt like it was falling apart. I was in what seemed like a deep and dark season of lack. Looking back, I realized this moment was a pivotal turning point for my growth and ultimately my success. When I was in that season of lack, I had to confront something I hadn't seen before. I realized that I was lacking nothing. I already had everything I needed. The abundance I sought wasn't something that would come later. It was already here. I just had to open my eyes and see it. I began noticing the little things, the beauty of nature around me, the warmth of a conversation, the simple joy of a cup of coffee in the morning. I downloaded an app called 3 Good Things, which helped me keep track of what I was grateful for each day. It held me accountable for my gratitude, and I made it a daily practice to reflect on the blessings in my life, no matter how small they seemed. It kept me grounded and focused on the present moment. I started to feel an overwhelming sense of gratitude for everything I already had, and that gratitude grew every day. I began to see abundance all around me, not just in terms of material wealth, but in love, experiences, and opportunities. I made it a habit to actively look for things to be grateful for, and that habit shifted my entire perspective. During this time, I also joined a hiking club, started taking my dogs to the park every week, and began listening to news and philosophy audiobooks. These were grounding activities that kept me rooted in the present moment. I could feel myself evolving in real time, and I began to understand the depth of what it meant to truly live with intention. And then something magical happened. This shift in my mindset also led me to quit smoking, both weed and tobacco, cold turkey. At the same time, I cut caffeine out of my diet. I started cooking beautiful, healthy meals, drinking plenty of water, and making smoothies. I focus on intentionally feeling good every day, nurturing my body, mind, and spirit. I put affirmations on my fridge so they would be the first thing I saw when I woke up. Over a short period of time, this new lifestyle became my new normal. The gratitude, the abundance, the peace, it all became part of who I was. I realized that peace is something we all search for when we're trying to manifest or create our dream life. But here's the thing. Peace doesn't come from external circumstances. It can only be found within. You have to cultivate peace from within yourself, regardless of what you have or who is around you. You must learn to experience peace simply by being. Around the same time, I was hired as a full-time designer at a well-known brand in New York City with a very good salary. My life was falling into place, but here's the key. I had already found peace and joy within myself before these things materialized. I didn't put these experiences on a pedestal or let them define my happiness. I was already happy on my own, and these things just naturally aligned with who I had become energetically. The magic of this process is that everything falls into place when you stop chasing it. When you decide to be at peace with who you are, your desired reality will effortlessly match your energy. Love to everyone who's listening to this. You've got this. You deserve a life that makes you happy.
Story 6. $0 to $44,000 in 2 weeks. A few short weeks ago, I was broke, and things weren't looking good. Being broke wasn't new to me. I had been in this position many times before, always just scraping by, always borrowing money. It had become a pattern. I had been running my business for a few years, and while I'd occasionally land a nice project, that money would go straight into catching up on bills. I never seemed to get ahead. But despite all of this, I never felt completely devastated, because I've always believed in the inevitability of my abundance. So while things were tough, I wasn't thinking about taking any drastic steps. It was frustrating, but I trusted that things would work out. That cycle lasted for years. What frustrated me even more was that I was surrounded by abundance. I've always felt more connected to wealthy and abundant people than to those who consider themselves broke or struggling, even though I was always broke and struggling. I knew deep down that the issue was with my assumptions. I was partway there, assuming abundance for myself, but the actual money in my bank account? I couldn't quite figure that out. Then, the last week of August hit, and it all came to a breaking point. It was really bad. I owed thousands on credit cards, and to people. My phone was ringing nonstop. A project with a measly $2,500 retainer just fell through. My girlfriend was upset, ready to walk out. On top of that, I had a Europe trip coming up for a gig, and I had already spent the money I'd set aside for hotels and other expenses. So I had a lot to pay for, and the trip was only a month away. I had nothing. How I had been approaching my work with Neville before this was to just get by. I never really did the work, but I held on to the belief that abundance was on its way. So I'd find myself in tough situations, but something would always come through, just enough to get by. But this time was different. I was on the verge of financial collapse, and I was probably about to lose everything. In that moment of desperation, I thought about my feature film project. I had written it years ago and just recently bought it back from a producer who had wasted a year doing nothing with it. This film was my passion project, one I had poured years of work into. I had built a financial deck and priced the development at $30,000. I thought I might be able to raise $5,000 from each of 6 of my wealthy friends. But even then, I didn't want to, nor could I, use development money to pay off my debts. But I was running out of options. So I grabbed my notebook, stepped onto the balcony, and looked up at the stars. I said a genuine prayer for exactly what I needed. I wrote down 2 things. I will have tank by September 1st, and I will have the full $30,000 development money for my film project by October 1st, and at least one project to sustain me financially. And then I let it go. I felt a wave of relief wash over me, as if I had just birthed this request into the universe. I trusted that it had already been answered, and I felt at peace. The rest of the evening was calm. Then, magic happened. 2 days later, my business partner and I received an email from a prospect we thought had lost interest months ago. We create commercials, and our last conversation with them had been when their COO basically told us how bad of an idea she thought it was to create a commercial. After that, they ghosted us. But this new email, 3 months later, simply read, "Where are we at on the video?" Before we knew it, the same COO was fully on board, planning the project and asking for the invoice. This was a $12,500 project. A few days later, I mentioned to an older friend that I was raising development money for my film. Out of nowhere, he asked, "What if I wanted to invest?" I gathered my affairs and met with him. I was excited that I might get my first $5,000, maybe even $10,000. But then when I asked him how much he wanted to invest, he said $30,000. All of this happened in about a week and a half. Let's revisit what I had written. I will have $10K by September 1st, and I will have the full $30K development money for my film project by October 1st, and at least one project to sustain me financially. And here's the best part. Neither of these events required any action from me. I was absolutely floored, and I still am. The precision of the law cannot be understated. Be who you are, and I still remain currently active in the film industry. This is huge for me. I've struggled for years, and all I had to do was something. It took having my back against the wall for me to finally apply the law with intention. 3 weeks ago, I had to borrow $100. Now there's $30,000 in my bank account, with another $14,000 on the way. I've also confirmed a $3,500 retainer and a $1,500 project. I'm sharing this because I know I'm not the only one who's struggled financially for a long time. If you're in the same boat, you can turn it around quickly. I believe I did a lot of things right. I rejected the 9-5 mentality. I have big, lofty goals that I truly believe in. I don't stress about money because I know it'll work out, and I understand that my ability to make money depends on how much I occupy the state of my abundant self. The final key was simply to practice the law with intention. Lessons learned. Write it down. There's something powerful about it. Maybe it's the intentionality behind it. After I felt that relief in the moment, it was done. The next day, I was anxious again, even after hearing that I was going to receive the money. I was fretting over the fact that it hadn't landed in my account yet, worrying that the shoe would drop. None of it mattered. I wasted precious time being silly. Momentum follows your highest aspirations. This deserves its own post, but I've learned that believing in your biggest, boldest dream is where the real power lies. If I asked anyone here what your highest ambition is for your life, I'm sure you'd have an answer. Understand that you've already birthed it. Where else could it be? You'll have it when you decide to believe it's yours and reject anything in opposition to that belief. I'll end by saying you do have the power to create the reality you desire. Exercise it.
Story 7. Manifesting Abundance. How I Transformed My Business and Finances in 2 weeks. Hi guys. Today, I want to share something deeply personal. My success story about how I turned my entire business and financial situation around in just 2 weeks. Now, I've decided to stay anonymous for this, so I won't get into too many specifics, but those who know me in real life would tell you that my business went through an extraordinary 180-degree turnaround, and now it continues to grow exponentially. Today, I am in a much more secure place. My finances are comfortable, and my business is thriving in a way that I once thought was impossible for what I do. But more than that, I feel calm, secure, and deeply at peace. It's like everything is working out just as it should. Now, I want to tell you how I did it. The method I used wasn't just some random trick. It was a way of thinking, a way of being, a commitment to a belief system. When things were at their worst, I had no other choice but to trust the process. And in doing so, I turned my entire life around. So, listen closely, because this is the journey that led me to where I am today. All began when I decided. That's right, I made a firm decision. I decided that I am wealthy right now, in this moment. I didn't wait for the external world to validate it. I didn't wait for my bank balance to reflect it, or my business's financials to mirror it. I simply decided that it was true in my inner world. And that's where the shift began. To clarify, though, while I knew it wasn't literally true in the 3D world yet, my finances didn't change overnight. I didn't go around pretending like everything was perfect. I wasn't being delusional. It was simply about choosing to feel that wealth internally, to feel secure, to feel abundant, and to trust that my internal reality would eventually shift my external reality. For one thing, I imagined my triple internal reality. So, while I was aware that things hadn't shifted just yet in my physical world, I accepted that the truth in my mind, my inner world, was real. I held on to it, and I lived as though it was true. I wasn't chasing the external proof anymore. I was focusing on the feeling that I was already wealthy. Once I made that decision, I went all in. I completely shifted my focus and went tunnel vision on this new belief. I stopped giving attention to what was going wrong in my business or finances. It was like I had to cut off all the old stories, all the doubts, and all the negative things that I had been repeating in my mind. As far as I was concerned, I was already wealthy. That's all there was to it. I know that this may sound like it happened overnight, but it wasn't instant. It wasn't about wishful thinking. It was about creating a new belief and allowing myself to feel it so intensely that my whole focus was on that reality. The magic started to happen when I stopped doubting myself and let go of all the previous failures and mistakes. I stopped obsessing over what wasn't working and focused only on what was already working. The belief that I was wealthy, even if it hadn't fully manifested yet. And guess what? Eventually, my world began to reflect my new belief. Things started changing, both in my business and my finances. Slowly, I began to see the tangible evidence of my manifestation. The results weren't immediate, but they were inevitable. Once my inner world matched my outer world, my affirmation shifted from a simple declaration to a deep, unwavering belief. It no longer felt like something I had to say to myself, but rather, it was just the truth. But I didn't stop there. There were moments when doubt would creep in. Old thoughts, old fears would try to rear their heads. And when that happened, I would gently remind myself, I am wealthy. It became my lifeline. It was the anchor that kept me grounded in the new reality I was building. I'll be honest, there was a lot of desperation in my decision to go all in. When you're at rock bottom, when there seems to be no way out, you become so desperate for change that you have no choice but to commit. And in that desperation, I was able to discipline my mind in a way I never had before. If I hadn't been in that position, I'm not sure if I would have been as strict with myself. But I had no other option. For the first day, I actually used a different affirmation to calm my anxiety. It wasn't focused on wealth yet, but on feeling safe. I used the affirmation, I am always looked after. Anyone who has been through financial distress knows just how crippling that anxiety can feel. I am always looked after helped me ground myself and calm down. Before I could even think about stepping into the energy of wealth. Once I felt secure again, I moved into my main affirmation, I am wealthy. Now, you might be wondering about the technique I used. In simple terms, it was repetitive affirmations. Over and over again, I would say, I am wealthy. But because I wasn't always in the mood to speak it aloud, I'd listen to it on repeat. Mainly because I was lazy, and listening was easier than constantly saying it in my head, but listening to it became natural, and I would say it in my mind while listening anyway. The funny thing is, after a few days, I didn't even need to force myself to listen anymore. I had reached a point where I knew it was true. It felt like an undeniable truth deep in my bones. So, I stopped forcing myself to listen to the recording. I'd only listen when doubts crept up, and each time, I'd remind myself, I am wealthy. It wasn't about constantly affirming it. It was about feeling it, embodying it, and trusting that the universe would catch up to my inner reality. And with time, my world caught up. In the end, this journey taught me that belief is the most powerful tool we have. If you can believe in something fully, without wavering, the universe will find a way to bring it into your reality. It may not come immediately, but it will come. And when it does, it will feel like the most natural thing in the world. That's the story of how I manifested my business and financial success. I didn't wait for the world to change first. I changed, and the world followed. Remember, if you can believe it, you can achieve it. Your reality is